We survived the 3-game week, and here we are for the Championship Check-In podcast. TV's Sam Parkin, after a double shot on co-coms for Sky Sports, is here, and 7 days before any more Championship. Well, actually, no, we'll be back into it on Friday night. But how you doing, Sam?
Yeah, really good. Yeah, no, it was a good weekend. Yeah, really enjoyed both the games. Yeah, full on. But yeah, got a treat, didn't I, on Saturday lunchtime. Friday was a little bit slow to get going. Enjoyed the second half, I think, at Fratton Park, but then yeah, Saturday was a thriller. I think I said it on a previous podcast. 2-0 down, 3-2 up. That's the joyous days, isn't it, for one set of supporters, and the toughest one to swallow for the other contingent. Luton on this occasion behind the goal, but yeah, thrilling game and loads to get stuck into.
Brilliant. So it's Pompey 1, Wednesday 2 on Friday. Bristol City 0, Leeds 0 in the first of the earlies. Coventry 3, Luton 2. We'll pick Sam's brain on that in a bit. Watford 1, Blackburn 0. That's all the earlies. The 3 p.m s. Burnley 0, QPR 0. Derby 1, Hull 1. Plymouth 3, Preston 3. Sheffield United 2, Stoke 0. Sunderland 2, Oxford 0. Right up at the very top. Swansea 0. Millwall 1, West Brom 0, Cardiff 0, and then on Sunday, Norwich 3, Middlesbrough 3. Let's head to Parkin's pick. Right, we're going to shake it up a little bit this week, Sam, because for a couple of reasons, we're going to have a look at the bottom of the table and who's in trouble. A bottom 6, who's going down special. I did a lot yesterday on the Hot Takes video on the top of the table, and we've seen plenty of that. So, Sam, it's going to be our first check-in down at the bottom, and you're very well poised to start us off to talk about Portsmouth, who are struggling badly. 1 win in 12, 8 points from the 12 games. So they're kind of exactly halfway between the disastrous 0.5 and the probably good enough 1 point per game. 25 conceded as well, Sam. Obviously, you can talk to me a bit about the game as well. How are you feeling about Pompey after round 12?
Yeah, I think firstly, 12 games in, we're probably in a position where we're not going to get too criticised for having a look at the potential teams that are going to be in trouble this season. A few weeks ago, we might have said, the table's irrelevant. But I think 12 games in is a fair chunk of the season, isn't it? Well, a quarter of the season or so. So, yeah, it's a big concern. I was, obviously underwhelmed by their display on Friday. I think one of the first things I said, during the commentary, that it's clear to me that they're having to compromise, the principles and the game plan as it was in League One. They were a brilliant team to watch last season. They played with, obviously, a bit more control through the centre halves, Marlon Pack getting on the ball, always had that high energy, without. And I think we're just seeing them obviously being a little bit longer in terms of their distribution, going from back to front a little bit quicker. Pompey, and also probably not closing with that same intensity. And I think in the Championship, you run the risk of getting played through, and obviously you're playing against better players. So I didn't think they were as intense without the ball. The front players dropped off a little bit and probably not pressing maybe with that aggression that they have done before. And that's all understanding the position that you're in and understandable. And during the international break, I'm sure they would have been, thinking really hard, as we've seen probably other managers. Rob Edwards would be another one. I think Luton have come back looking a little bit different to how they were preceding the international break. So I understand all that. And for 45 minutes, it wasn't brilliant. There wasn't a great level of creativity, but they got the goal. From a set piece, if memory serves. Yeah, Ogilvie on the far post, wasn't it? A really well worked set piece, actually, which is, again, clearly an area that a team that's struggling is going to identify to try and get those marginal gains. And I thought it was a brilliant set piece. It was Omani, wasn't it, across the front, something they would have identified, getting that great touch on it, and Ogilvy controlled the finish really well. But I was thinking in my head, I didn't say it, but I was kind of thinking, yeah, there's been nothing between the two sides. There's not been many chances. It's kind of perfect. It's just a horrible game. It doesn't matter how you get the 3 points. I couldn't help but not think they've scored too early here.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Danny
And
Roll's now
some,
going to have to react across half time. And I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
yeah. And speaking to the Portsmouth staff, they were so complimentary, you know, about the way Sheffield Wednesday are basically going into the game in terms of their shape and how hard they are to break down, and basically how good they are at just disrupting games and making them pretty turgid. Is that a word? I think I said sturgid once on this podcast, which went down well. But do you know what I mean? Just kind of spoiling games through their work ethic and their organisation. And I thought we saw that to a degree, and both teams lacking in creativity. So, yeah, listen, Danny rolled the dice, didn't he, in the halftime break, made 2 changes, and I thought it transformed the game. They played all the game in Portsmouth's half in the second period, and Portsmouth just ran out of steam and ran out of ideas a little bit. And you have to point towards probably the lack of depth in the squad at this point. I was
going to say, Sam, is the age balance all right here? Because in the starting 11, they're young, aren't they? Devlin, Potts, Sadie, O'Mahony. Do you know what I mean? Are they? I mean, you could always do with more experienced players. Is that balance off a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's the depth issue and a quality issue, really, which is obvious, and there's been, you know, there's been mitigating circumstances to the level of the start, how poor it's been. It's been the opposition. I think 7 out of the first 11 games are against teams in the top half. I think no Shaughnessy is a massive miss. I think no Colby Bishop is obviously, given the late stage of the pre-season, I think that it was that they found out that he was going to be missing with this heart issue. Devastating for obviously for him, but for the club as well, and their potential upsetting the odds and consolidating, which was probably my thought coming into the season. I think that was really hindered by that, and obviously there's a bit of a depth issue there. So it is a big concern. Those aforementioned players, Ben, I think coming back, give them a much better chance of getting results. Just I think those 2 players can make a big difference. Wanting more from Yengi, I suppose. He was a real able deputy for Colby Bishop last year. And I suppose the most interesting thing in terms of their lineup the other day was leaving Marlon Pack out, which is sad for him that he's not been able to impact games, I suppose. And it would have been tough for him to take, I'm sure. But I understand Dazzel's been, you know, knocking on the door, really, in terms of his performances in training, and deserved his opportunity up against Freddie Potts, who's been one of the shining lights during this tough period. But it looks like it's going to be a tough season. I can't say anything other than that, but it looks like in January, you know, if they're in with a fighting chance, then who knows? If they can make some savvy additions, then, you know, you can't rule them out from staying in the division, but it's going to be a scrap, that's for sure.
So, if we would have had Portsmouth down there just purely on gravity and League One sides coming up and it being tricky, we certainly wouldn't have had the next 2, QPR and Luton, in there. I'll touch briefly on QPR, Sam, because you're obviously far more knowledgeable about them than I am, and we've spoken about them a lot. And I'm going to put it to you as a bit of a what if, because obviously they had to go to Burnley at the weekend. They're 9 points from 12, and it looks almost certain, given the next 3 fixtures in that 3-game week, that they're not going to be at a point per game by the end of round 15. Because listen to this: Sunderland, Middlesbrough, and Leeds. It's the next week of games for QPR, which is just, to use a Sam Parkinism, absolutely rancid in terms of the fixture list. Yes, they played 2 of them at home, and I think someone did tweet me, Sam, and say they've played parachute teams 3 times this season and not actually lost to any of them strangely, Sam. We don't need to tread over old ground in terms of how poor it's been. Back-to-back draws during the week. No win in 8, so 1 win in 12. But Sam, you can see them at round 15. I mean, let's be kind and say they do win one of those games and say lose the other two. So let's add on one more point per game. They'd be at 12 points from 15 games. That's dreadful, isn't it?
Yeah, and sorry to go over old ground, but I've seen the only victory. Was it still the only victory at Luton?
At Luton.
Yeah, and it was completely undeserved, in my opinion. First clean sheet in any competition. This one, that's pretty sobering at this stage of the season. And also to think back to, that last game at Turf Moor under Gareth Ainsworth, which they managed to win, to see the statistics of a similar note, despite it being a different outcome here. Just the point for QPR on this occasion, they're not posing any thing of like a threat to the opposition. Yes, I mean there's vast differences in terms of the amount of money that it's taken to put this Burnley squad together in comparison to the QPR one. Let's get that out of the way right now. But I don't think there should be such an enormous degree of disparity between the two, where QPR hardly land a punch. But the supporters this morning will be thrilled at the defensive display, of course, at Burnley, and great to see Steve Cook and Jake Clark-Salter back reunited. Jimmy Dunn looking more comfortable immediately back at fullback rather than at left-sided centre-half, where he hasn't looked so comfortable. But I suppose at the moment, you're still waiting for the new signings. The Salah issue wrangles on. I didn't think I'd be sat here saying that missing Michael Frey is an obvious issue at the moment, but it clearly is that he's the best striker currently at the club. Salah just can't get going, especially in the kind of 4-2-3-1. I don't know what they do about that. You're hoping that Chair and Dembele, when they can play in tandem, Dembele wasn't available at the weekend. I think that was a late pull-out. You hope those two are going to have the creativity to probably support Frey and make them a little bit more potent going forward. But it's really difficult at the moment. There doesn't seem to be much rhythm. There doesn't seem to be much confidence within the new players in particular. But as I said, the fight displayed at Burnley, you have to focus in on that and say that it was a really good point. Being competitive, as you say, in that Sheffield United, Luton and now Burnley games, but it's not going to be about that, is it? It's going to be about taking points off the teams that are going to be in the bottom half, and they need to improve at Loftus Road. But, the manager still seems to have everyone's support. Not heard anything to suggest otherwise really in the last week. And I still feel that QPR have probably got enough quality in the dugout and in the squad to go on a run and turn things around. And it's probably going to be based, although it's not been particularly evident so far this season, it's probably going to be based on a good goalkeeper, a decent back four, I think, when they can get it going and get consistency there. And then you're hoping that Chair Dembele can get you some goals and make some chances to improve the fortunes going in an opposite direction.
So the other surprise team, Sam, and Luton finding new ways to lose games again, and you were there for Coventry 3, Luton 2. The other surprise team in the bottom three is obviously Luton. Back-to-back defeats this weekend, 1 win in 6. They've conceded 2 or more goals in 7 of the 12 rounds so far. And I don't know what your take on it is going to be, but they're pretty lucky to be 2-0 up as well. It felt like they kind of scored their only 2 penalty box entrances. And this is a situation, Sam, where you've got a team that have been handed the 3 points here and 2-0 up at half time, and they folded again.
Yeah, I think first thing to say is that I've been quite down on Coventry, and I felt, waking up that morning and getting into the ground and doing all the prep and speaking to people, I wasn't so sure that this was going to be a season that turns around particularly quickly for Coventry. And I think a lot of people's sentiment is that they got an abundance of quality and they're going to really quickly rise up the league and that they're in a false position. I probably wasn't on board with that, to be honest. I think the problems were maybe a bit greater. But then, fast forward 90 minutes, I was coming around to the idea because I thought that was a brilliant Coventry performance. Despite being 2 goals behind, I thought they started as well as they've started this season. I think the fans, for the majority of the game, it's difficult to stay fully on board when you're 2-0 behind. But I think for the majority, they were loud, they were positive, and they saw a team full of creativity, endeavour. Creativity more than endeavour, I would say. There was real nice passages of play, loads of inventive football, and some really good performances from some of their big players, the front 2 in particular. So, real credit to Mark Robins, because I've not fully believed all the noises coming out of the camp that they're gonna click. But on Saturday we certainly saw that. For Luton, I thought, again, I can see that essence of Luton 22-23 kind of running through the team again in that first half. Very robust. I thought Chong looked exciting when he was able to get on the ball. I thought in comparison to Sakamoto, the 2 players playing at number 10, Chong stood out, knitting it together nicely. But I just thought Adebayo and Carlton Morris, for the first time, in the flesh that I've seen them this season, motivated, completely at it. Even if they weren't being delivered good quality into their bodies or, favourable pass for them to win that flick, just stopping the Coventry centre-halves from meaningful clearances, aggressive, strong, horrible to play against. I really thought those 2 looked back where they were in the Premier League last season. So that's, got to be what Rob Edwards, even in defeat, has to focus in on. I thought the second half, they completely lost their way. I think you have to fully credit Coventry for maintaining the pressure, the intensity. I thought Luton looked leggy. And I know we're at the end of a 3-game week, and I know it's the same for all the sides, but they played Watford, which obviously is a huge game emotionally and physically, and they played Sunderland on the Wednesday. So I just thought 2 really tough games, and I just thought they ran out of steam a little bit towards the end, hence Morris and Adebayo not really affecting the game. Morris taking off, after maybe 60, 70 minutes, which, impacted them. He went for quite kind of towards the tail end, Nakamba, Clark, Krause, maybe. Someone else came on. I can't remember exactly how it finished, but Walsh came on. But it was quite a steady midfield without much attacking impetus. So I thought they kind of declared at 2-2. Rob Edwards had kind of felt what I was maybe feeling and seeing, that they just run out of steam, and that getting away from Coventry, who had been really on song with a point, would have been a good outcome. And obviously the last goal was a little bit of a mess, suspicion of offside, nearly an own goal. I think it was just a bit of a scrap, but no question Coventry deserved it in that front 2. In contrast, Adebayo and Morris didn't finish strong. Neither of them on the pitch. Hadji Wright and Sims, which has been, I think, a big topic of conversation for Coventry City supporters. No rhythm, no continuity with their front players, because Robbins has got 4 to pick from. So naturally he's making changes often, stuck with those 2 because the nature of their performance was really good. And what happens? They both get a goal and they're pivotal to the turnaround. But for Luton, I think there has been huge strides made in the last 7 days, 8 days. Absolutely. I think the performance against Watford was the best by a mile of the season. And then they followed it up against Sunderland with a performance which should have yielded points. So I wouldn't be too downbeat despite the nature of this defeat. But a little bit concerning that they're just not being able to, I think, consistently pick up points to turn around the feeling. There'll be a negativity there this morning, naturally, after the defeat. But too much to be worried about them long term, I'm sure.
Just above the line, Sam, and I suppose we need to frame this given the way you've just finished, saying too much to be worried long term, and given I'm talking about two of the bottom three being a surprise, if we're accurate with those assessments, then Plymouth fans would be worried because they're the one just above, and we're expecting a possible trend up from two of the three teams below them. And there were no 0 point weeks in the championship this 3 game week. No one went three straight defeats, but Plymouth, I think, along with Swansea, were the only ones to just score a single point. And I think there's you're leaving far too much on the knife edge here, Sam. If you're going 5 away defeats in a row without scoring a goal, and you've got two teams you expect to trend up underneath you, everything revolves around you basically have to be a top 6 side at home, and that's concerning, isn't it? Surely for Plymouth.
Yeah, I'll name check Chris Errington, who's the local journalist who I spoke to last week a couple of times. Actually, I spoke to him on the radio, then I saw him in the flesh at Millwall. But he's done an article in the aftermath of the Millwall defeat on the contrast between the home and the away support. So I'll just relay some of it. Well, at home, they've had 13 wins since they've been promoted to the Championship from 28 games, and 9 defeats. And 5 of those were in a row under Ian Foster. So if you think under Wayne Rooney and Stephen Schumacher, there's only been 4 defeats, if my maths is correct, since they've been promoted at Home Park. You know, that's incredible numbers. 45 points from 28 games. This was before actually Saturday. So 46 points from 29 games. Away from home, it's been 3 wins in 29 games. And 2 of those actually came under Foster, which is incredible, and one under the interim managers. If you remember the end of last season, I think it was up at Middlesbrough when they were scrapping for their lives. So, I mean, it's not sustainable, surely, or is it? We know what they're like at home, and we saw what they can do again at the weekend. But I mean, anyone who was at the game can correct me if I'm wrong here, but they've got away with one here. I mean, enormous credit for the mentality, the powers of recovery, the ability for Morgan Whittaker, despite, again, I mean, he was terrible at Millwall the other day. And again, here, by all accounts, he's still fortunate to be on the pitch because obviously, Wayne Rooney probably would have substituted someone with the lesser goal scoring ability and knack to pop up late. But credit to Morgan Whittaker, again, who, no surprise, has got the most shots in the division once more at this stage. I think he's always good for a goal. But yeah, interesting seeing, I think, 5 changes from the starting lineup. Obviously, Gibson missing, who's been pretty colossal for them, Lewis Gibson, at times this season. And Joe Edwards does his hamstring trying to defend, I think, the Preston 3rd goal. So that's a big concern when I'm going to follow what I say there with he's going to have to look at doing something different away from home. And I think, I don't know off the top of my head, and I've not really thought about this, but, putting a 3rd centre-half in, maybe going with wing-backs. You've got Mumba and Edwards. Looks like he's going to be missing for a bit now, but they can have someone to plug that gap. Mumba can play either side. You could play Whittaker in support of the striker, couldn't you? So you've still got the goal threat up there. I just think, to keep doing the same thing, despite them being competitive, at Burnley and West Brom, wasn't it? The other one they lost by just a solitary goal. QPR obviously is the only place they've managed to score. Whittaker thumping one in from 25 yards.
That was bizarre though as well, because they clung on for that one as well, didn't they, Sam, with the red cards?
Well, it's the reason why statistically you look and QPR aren't as woeful going forward, probably in the stats, and Plymouth are so bad because they conceded 35 odd shots or whatever it was at QPR, and Connor Hazard made 27 saves. You know what I mean? So that the lines have been a little bit blurred by that, but it's just alarming, the contrast. I mean, I'm talking again because it's quite fresh in my memory seeing them at Millwall, but and I know a lot of the Argyle fans are probably settled in other areas of the country, and there's probably quite a lot of London Argyle fans, for example. But they've got some following away from home, and they stuck with a team at Millwall. They're probably, not to patronise, but they're still probably, really enjoying this tilt at the Championship. And we've seen enough from them in the home games and enough from them in terms of a style point of view. I've been really impressed with some of the football that they can mix it with the big boys. But they've got to look at this away form, otherwise they're going to be in trouble. They were in trouble last year, and the season is mirroring what's gone before. So, yeah, all eyes on the next lineup, I suppose, and the outcome of the next away game.
There's good news and bad news, Sam. There is a home game in the 3-game week at home to Portsmouth, which is massive. The next 3 away games, I mean, Leeds away, say no more. Derby away. Derby have been brilliant at home. And Sam, you flagged up. Norwich are about to go a year undefeated at home, and Plymouth have got to go there as well. So it does not get any easier. By the way, if you're a fan of any of these teams, get your thoughts in via the comments. Right, Sam, one we can surely go quickly on, our 5th out of 6th, is Cardiff, who ain't going to be in any trouble whatsoever the rate they're going under Omar Ritza. 11 points in 5 games. That's the sort of thing we'd be talking about someone who's up at the top of the league doing. And just an absolute massive trend up, 4 clean sheets in those 5 as well. Surely everyone's sitting here right now, Sam, thinking Cardiff ain't going to be in the bottom 6 very long.
No, incredible turnaround, isn't it? When you think of the early part of the season, it was the worst start for many a year, wasn't it? Under Errol Bullitt, and it's coming out now that obviously the atmosphere had completely gone for whatever reason on the training ground, and the football was just being transformed. And in the individuals, and I maybe sound like a broken record here, but speaking to people that have seen them recently, you're just talking about the form of Tanner. In particular, I think Robertson is showing his quality now that we knew from his loan spell last year in League One at Pompey. You can talk across the 11 really, but to see them keeping clean sheets as well is just incredible. But I don't think my sentiment has really changed from last week. Maybe you'd stick with Omar Risa for longer. I don't think right now does anything need to change. I'm not so sure, but again, I don't know if you hand out a 2-year, 3-year contract now and go, you're the manager of Cardiff City. I think, the lads are speaking in such glowing terms about him. He just seems to have made some really good decisions in terms of personnel, in terms of giving them the platform to go and play such eye-catching football, attacking football. And the players of the calibre like Chambers, El Ghazi, they're looking like what they were previously in their careers, which is very, very successful footballers at the highest level. So, yeah, a bit of an eye-catching result again, alarming West Brom's lack of killer instinct all of a sudden. Sounded like a really flat performance from them. Certainly the first half, I was listening to that one in the car. But, yeah, I mean, people I've spoken to, obviously, that I've watched Cardiff, played against Cardiff's team in the last few weeks, couldn't have been more complimentary. So, listen, I think probably any talk of the top 6 is premature, but yeah, it's very, very, very difficult to envisage them being anywhere near the foot of the table, and that's going to be probably in stark contrast, if we're predicting the future, to maybe what could happen at the team who are directly above them, which is Stoke, if memory serves, from looking at the table fleetingly a few minutes ago.
Yeah, and I mean,
form-wise, anyway. Form-wise, maybe not. Maybe not looking into the future, but form-wise, huge contrast.
I almost don't want to get drawn into this with Stoke because it happens every year with us, Sam. Stoke gonna Stoke. We get excited about them. It all goes wrong. Sack the manager. Something changes. Drift towards the bottom. Make another change. Get themselves safe. Rinse, repeat for the next season. But you're right. They're in the bottom 6. Here's a stat for you, Sam. Steven Schumacher had 5 games. They were the 13th best team in the Championship. Narcis Pelak has had 7 games and they're the 19th best team in the Championship. I know that's a bit of a flippant stat because, you can't compare two blocks of games. They're in different times of the season with different players against different oppositions. But essentially, if you do, they've got worse since they've changed the manager. Of course, you can argue that he then needs time and that could come back around. But if we've got this narrative that QPR and Luton are surprises down there, then two holes might open up down the bottom there. And if you're in the wrong place, Birmingham got relegated with 50 points last season. So would you be worried about that happening if you're a Stoke fan?
I would be slightly concerned, but then safe in the knowledge that they've probably got the resources to change things again at some stage this season. And, it feels like there's enough depth in the squad, enough quality in the squad to get it turned around again. I don't have a vast knowledge, and obviously, we're not going to get too heavy into it today, but obviously, it felt like Steven Schumacher was improving things, very gradually, and it felt like he still had the support of the fans, the majority anyway. And I think Steven Schumacher will be absolutely fine in terms of getting new employment. Just that to get that out of the way now, because people will have felt from the outside this was really harsh. But I'm not entirely sure why they made the decision. It's not evident to me where the improvement's been or where the improvement is going to be for them. And obviously John Walters is involved there, someone very inexperienced in that type of position. So we'll have to wait and see, but it's been a very underwhelming start. Just that one win where they, turned into Brazil 1970 in the final third. Tom Cannon in particular. I don't know the reasoning for him to coming off at half time the other day, but I did note he made six touches.
He would be a retiring Pele in that analogy. Then,
yeah. He had 6 touches in the first half. Against Sheffield United. So it doesn't seem to me that they're particularly functioning in any department right now. Obviously, he had that incredible performance there, and they were ridiculously clinical. I spoke on a Portsmouth podcast the other day, and it was a stat that was flagged up that Portsmouth actually had a higher XG against Oxford in their 1-1 draw, the subsequent game, higher XG in that game than Stoke actually had against Pompey in that 6-1. So I think that just illustrated, how clinical Stoke were on that night. And that's the only win. So, in stark contrast to what's going on at Cardiff at the moment, Stoke are wrestling around for some form and some consistency, and we're yet to see really what the inexperienced head coach is bringing to the party. But obviously, early days. So, I'd be very surprised if they're in trouble. But I can't really put my finger on why I'm so confident. But it's probably just because they have a knack of doing this, and then finding a little bit of rhythm and getting a little run of games where they can pick up some wins at some stage.
There you go, guys. That was a real deep dive on the bottom 6. We really hope you've enjoyed that. We understand, fans of football clubs, they just want you to talk about their football club all the time. But I hope you understand why we've done it, because often it doesn't get much of a mention on the show, and especially with Sam covering those 2 games there in the flesh this week.
Should we just quickly say which of the other teams slightly above that could get drawn in? And I'm talking very much looking into the future, into a crystal ball here, but who would be the teams that certainly you would think would be still thinking about the drop and not getting dragged in? I mean, we're early here. I mean,
if I look, Sam, just at the league table and I see Swansea's 3 wins and only 8 goals scored, not knowing what I know about Luke Williams and how there's been some development there, but real poor run of form, you'd have to suggest that. And then, as this is horribly harsh to say, But you've got to look at the promoted League One teams, even though they're in blooming 12th and 14th at the moment. So, yeah, maybe those three. Have you got any different views there?
No, not really. Not really. I mean, Des Buckingham's had a marvellous start, hasn't
Oh,
he,
they've been
to the
superb. Yeah,
season?
yeah.
Been superb. But yeah, I'd probably be, yeah, I was maybe going to say I'd be more concerned for Derby right now this morning. What are they? Yeah, there's only a point difference between them. I say concerned. I mean, I'd feel that maybe Derby would get into difficulty over Oxford. I'm still not convinced by Hull at all. But again, they are going to score goals and entertain. And if they can, iron out a few defensive deficiencies, they should be fine. I think Preston are going to improve no end. I wasn't overly enamoured with their performance against Norwich the other day when I covered them, but obviously to see them score 3 goals away from home against Argyle, despite the concessions of the 3, I think there's real positivity. I'm not sure how it is this morning after that collapse, but I think it's very difficult to think that Paul Heckingbottom over a long period of time is not going to greatly improve them. Elsewhere, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems like Millwall and Sheffield Wednesday would probably feel they're, not certain going to be miles away from it, but they've had brilliant starts to the season, so they wouldn't be in the conversation this morning, that's for sure.
Get your thoughts in the comments. It's a really difficult one to call, but one thing I always say in relegation discussions, as much as you never think it's going to be your team, 3 teams are going to be in those positions come the end of the season. So someone's dropping. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Okay, Worldie of the week time, Sam. And we often say it hasn't been a vintage week, but this one, blooming well, was a vintage week. I loved the Michael Smith goal for Sheffield Wednesday. You saw that in the flesh. I loved the Victor Torp goal for Coventry. You saw that in the flesh. Simmons for Hull, drilled one in nice and low at Derby. Isidore for Sunderland on the volley. Beautiful, beautiful goal. And then Borja Sainz trying to beat everybody by himself. Maybe not with the best goal, but he did 2 in one game as well, Sam. Right, can you sort this out for us, please? Well done, the week.
I don't know if I can. I mean, I was so fortunate to see, 2 of those goals. I think purely, being there and the enthusiasm it was met by from me and my commentator, Gary Tapper, it's got to be Michael Smith. It was a kind of take your breath away moment. It really was. And I went quite big on that being something that's not particularly in his armoury and it's the greatest goal he's ever scored. And then in the back of my mind, I thought, you know what? I think he's bent a few in before. And I think Gary mentioned there's one for Rotherham when he was at Rotherham at Hillsborough that he bent in from distance. So I think he surprises us from time to time, Michael Smith. But genuinely, and I said it during the commentary, when the ball's coming into him and he's shaping to shoot, you've got to take it. What are you doing? What are you doing? Take a touch. You can't. And then he's bent just the
Wow.
most sumptuous to get the power with a side foot. Obviously, a couple of the angles, if you've not seen it, watch the Sky highlights. A couple of the angles are just unbelievable. The pace that he gets on the strike with the side foot, because it's it probably does help that it's actually quite thumped into him from Valerie. It's not set really to be hit. He's probably actually playing it into Smith for him to just recycle and build up the play. But he just whips it in. It's an amazing goal. Loved it. So that would be my goal of the week, no question. Torps was brilliant. I enjoyed Ben Sheaf's little role in it. He was obviously trying to get it under control to shoot himself, and he just saw him in his peripheral vision, set it perfectly for it to be bent in. That was glorious. Isidore, I mean, what a player he is looking right now for Sunderland, just giving them a different strand, isn't he? Like in terms of his mobility as well. If they're going to be on the counter attack at times, he can stretch the play for him, and he's showing that he's got an eye for a goal. Couple in quick succession for Simons at Hull. Yeah, I think that's 2 from range,
Yeah.
isn't it? In maybe consecutive games, or 2 in 3 for him. But we've got to finish by talking about science. I mean, and I've
What
not
a
thought
player.
intently about this. He's the best in the division, right? He's the best in the division in terms of numbers, but obviously the form right now, um, he's talismanic for Norwich. He's got to be the best player. I mean, I don't think there's anyone that comes close, but this is kind of over a short period. It's kind of trapped Buendia, Pookie
Yeah.
levels, isn't it, of form, because he's been doing it for a dozen games or so now, and he's scoring beautiful goals. He's scoring different types of goals. And the first one is such a glorious strike. It wobbles in the air. It's beautiful. But then the 2-touch finish for the second one, the touch to open it up, the angle, because everyone in the Middlesbrough side knows what he's going to try and do now, right? They know from that side he's going to come in and try and bend it. But the touch is just so good that I don't even think they could have predicted that or expected it to happen. And then I think it kissed the underside of the bar on the way in. So he's playing so well, honestly. I love watching him at the moment. It's a bit akin to maybe Cole Palmer, the impact he's having on every game of football. And when he gets it, even in the games when Norwich are under pressure or not as free flowing as maybe they'd want to be, he's still liable to produce a moment or produce a pass. So yeah, long may it continue, because I'm thoroughly enjoying watching him. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the game, they highlighted the XG quite a lot afterwards, because obviously
Oh
Middlesbrough's was
my God.
incredibly higher,
And they missed a
and that,
penalty at 3-1 up, yeah?
of course, yeah, and that adds to it for Conway's hat trick. And
Wow.
just thinking, Middlesbrough, they've been very good defensively, and I think Matt Clark nearly made my team of the season. He was certainly in my thinking, but he's only played 6 games, so I think he's a big loss for them. And probably going back to last season, Middlesbrough just, despite the defensive record going into this game being pretty good, they are kind of the division's entertainers, I think, Middlesbrough. And there's still more to come from the forward players, because undoubtedly they've not been as clinical as they probably have been in the last couple of seasons. But yeah, it looked like the game maybe should have been outside, and it's probably where both teams need to focus. I think defensively, Norwich, at Preston, wasn't particularly impressed with them. And again, at the weekend, some bad goals, some bad decisions, and probably been really full of praise for Duffy and Cordoba. The last couple of games, that's not looked as watertight as it looked maybe early part of the season. So, yeah, defensive issues for both, but let's focus in on what was a glorious game of football and some magnificent goals.
Amen. We'll hope for more glorious games of football in the next round. There is a poll going at the moment on the community tab on the Benjamin Bloom football channel. I selected out 4. As ever, you can stick some in the comments. And leading the way at the moment is Blackburn versus Sheffield United for the mouthwatering matchup there for next round. Right. Let's get into the quiz to finish this one up, Sam. Questions in from our man Fev, as ever. Fev's football on Twitter. Sorry, I've got me my iPad now, not my phone. Do you want to go first, Sam? Do you want to answer first, or do you want to ask?
I'm going to answer second. So I'm going to give you your question, because if you get this, I'll give you the money myself. I didn't deliver that line very well, Les Dennis. Anyway, here we go. Your question is good in the air. Can you name 3 of the 6 players with the best aerial duel winning percentage in the division?
So they're either going to be
I'm going to give
big
you a clue.
strikers or big centre halves, yeah?
Going to give you a clue, okay? Because this is really difficult. All of them, to a man, are central defenders.
Okay.
One of them plays in a back 3 for certain. 2 of them for certain play in a back 3. That's as much as you're going to get.
Curtis Nelson.
Incorrect.
Let's go for a Sheffield Wednesday one. Who do they have? Mayo, Bernard, and
How many are we going to
Palmer.
give you guesses?
4.
4.
Oh, you get 4 guesses, don't you?
4 guesses.
Deshaun Bernard.
Nope.
Let's go Preston. Liam Lindsay.
Nope, but you're getting warm.
Does that mean I need to stick with Preston?
Yeah, and it's probably the one I wouldn't have anticipated being there.
Who are the other Preston centre halves?
Come on, they've been their back 3 for the last 25 years.
Mate. Story.
No, the other one.
Who is it? Tell me. I've had my 4 guesses.
Hughes.
I nearly swore then. For F's sake. Who were the other 2 then, Sam? Or the other 4 I need to know?
Other 5, mate. All right.
All right, don't rub it in.
Number 1, Suter.
Oh, God. So obvious.
Sheffield United. Hughes second. Then McNally.
Wouldn't have come up with that one, no.
Strouk. Leeds.
All of them.
I mean, yeah. Steve Cook.
I was going to
And
say Steve Cook.
Mark McGuinness was the other one in the back 3 that I referenced. So Hughes and McGuinness were the 2 that I thought.
So you only need 1 to win this week, Sam. And your question from Fev, can you name 3 of the top 6 players with the best defensive duel winning percentage? So I don't even know the exact definition of defensive duel, but I think it's just like a 50-50 or a ground duel, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I would have absolutely looked this up at some stage, but
yeah,
true to form, I can't think of anyone right now.
I'm going to give you a clue.
How many fullbacks? How many centre halves?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 centre halves, and like a wingery wing back.
All right, I'll go for the wingery wing back. Surely, Alfie Doughty.
No,
is he not?
No.
Oh, he's like top for the stats and everything.
I'll start giving you clues at the 3rd guess.
Right, I'll just go for players that I've seen in the flesh and enjoyed performances from. Tanganga.
Nope.
I mean, is there any method to this? Is it teams that are going to be down
there
the
is,
bottom?
but I'll give you a clue in a minute after your 3rd one. Okay, Sam, I'm going to give you a clue. Think about aggressive defenders who play on the front foot, maybe in teams that press a lot.
Okay. Gone completely blank. Famewell.
Yes.
Oh,
you're
yes.
in. Yeah.
For the win. Yeah, I mean.
Do you want to guess the others?
Yeah, I'll have a guess. Probably not something that would have, I'd have known, without looking at the stat pack before the game. But Sheffield Wednesday, very, very top in all the pressing metrics.
Well, if you keep going down that road, there are 2 Sheffield Wednesday players in there.
Okay, and Gassama, I think, is the one with the most highest turnovers in the division at the moment. From that logic, Bernard.
Yeah, for Mayo and Bernard are both in there. Jake Clark-Salter is number 1. Luke O'Neill, who loves a
I was going to say him, so I'll have that. Yeah, I was going to say.
Okay. Anel Ahmedhodzic and Sissoko of Watford. Sorry, that's a horrible clue. I saw Sissoko and I thought of the Plymouth player. So I'm really stitched you up there. Musa Sissoko is not a wingery.
Watford.
A wingery winger. It's the Watford. Sorry, I've really stitched you up there, but you won. You won anyway. So there you go. That rounds out the podcast for this week. Go and give Fev a follow at Fev's Football on Twitter, and come and join us later in the week for the next round of Championship predictions. Spoiler alert: Parkin is back.